Welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and welcome back to another episode. On this week's episode, we are talking all about goals, planning, why it's so important, the dreams that you have, and just the practical steps to get there. I love how today's conversation really is like real when you're just on survival mode. Like not everybody has like a perfect schedule, and this is not that episode on how to have a perfect schedule and how to be super organized. We really talk about how to have some type of vision or dream for our life and steps that we can take practically to get there. And it was a great conversation. I learned a lot from it. And you guys know that I'm a very type A person with my schedule and planning, but she shared her perspective from not being someone that's very organized and very structured like that, and things she has done to help her. So let's just dive right into this. I'm very excited to have Payne from Horacio Printing on with me. Welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast, Polly.
Yay. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me. For those that don't know you, I would love to hear what you're passionate about and all about your business.
So if you don't know me, I'm Polly. Nice to meet you. I am a mom. I'm also a very pregnant mom. So I've got my second baby coming. I'm currently living in Lookout Mountain, Georgia. I am the CEO and founder of Horacio Printing, which is a small Christian printing company that makes dream planners, so Bible studies, notepads. I also host the Dream Planning podcast. So I'm really passionate about helping people become who they're called to become and pursue their God-given dreams. That's truly where my calling is and what I love helping people do. And the planner is one of the key systems in my life that helps me just kind of keep my life together, but also making sure that I am carving out time to become who I'm called to become. So I love to teach that and help people. I have an academy of courses at the Horacio Printing Academy, and I help people really become who they're called to become, map out their dreams, and then just recently launched a business course called the Faith-Filled Business Blueprint that's specifically for Christian entrepreneurs. And each key lesson, whether it be marketing, accounting, sales, how to nurture your customers, branding, we always go back to what does the Bible say about this? And then I lead with practical steps and help people create their business plan, business model on biblical principles. So that's a little bit of what I do. It's kind of a lot, but it all ties together under really helping people pursue their calling.
I love that. And Polly, I think I was eager to ask you this question. Are you naturally a planner and a very organized person? Is that where it came?
I think I'm naturally forgetful, and I'm naturally
Okay.
easily distracted, and I'm naturally not going to remember anything unless I write it down. That's me. Like I am not type A. I have a lot of type A customers. But I'm just like type B and type like messy. Like if people that know me, they're like, Polly forgets everything. Like she, here's your purse. You left your purse, like that's me. And so I desperately need things in my life to help me be more responsible, to not miss the mark, to, make things happen, because we have to be intentional. Like life is kind of like a river, and it sweeps you away. And if you don't have a plan, you don't have a paddle, you don't have a map, like you just get swept away. And so that's kind of how I lived part of my life until I was like, okay, we've got to like rein this in. But I've always been a planner girl in the sense that when they handed out planners at school, like middle school, high school, like I was the girl in the last week of school, like still using it, because if I didn't write it down, like the assignment wouldn't happen. Like it was very much critical for me to succeed with keeping track of stuff. I was never really great at remembering in my head all my responsibilities.
Yeah, I think that's a talent when people say like, "Oh yeah, I got it." And I'm like, "Really?" Like even
Yeah.
servers and all of that.
Hmm.
But no, I was always curious because you really focus on helping people like make a plan. And so like for me, I love the planners. I love journaling. Like that's been kind of the same as you, like very like structured, but that's like more my personality type. So I'm like probably your customer type A versus like what you're saying. But I know there are people on both end that can benefit. And I love how you also talk about life as a river, and even in your podcast, about like trying to have a plan for your life as a Christian, but also being like led and having structure and discipline. So, can you talk about kind of how all that came to be with you eventually realizing like you needed to have kind of a plan and in your life, and how even your dream came to happen?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a lot of different things I could talk about. I could talk about the beginning of Horatio, but if you want to see a dream come true and you want to see a big milestone reached, or you want things to change, you have to be intentional. You need a plan. Um, Things don't just fall into your lap. And I think sometimes it's easy to hide behind what I call noble hiding places. I'm waiting on God for this. And there's nothing wrong with waiting on God. And there's seasons where we absolutely wait on God. But I think sometimes we get caught up in excuses that we call waiting, but we're actually not taking any activity. Like, I'm waiting on God to give me a new job, or I'm waiting on Him. Well, you can edit your resume. You can do some work on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? There's steps we can take. And I don't think that's being disobedient to bring your 100% to the table. I love the quote that J.J. Vasquez preached at Journey Church years ago. He said, God will do what you can't do, but God won't do what you can do. Like, you got to do what you can do, and then God will do what you can't do. But we have to bring our first fruits. We have to be intentional. We have to work hard. There's so many biblical principles or Bible verses that talk about hard work and the importance of us giving our all, um, and surrendering the outcome to God ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if I'll take you back to the beginning of Horatio, my life was a complete and utter mess in 2014. I was living in New York. I had the public outer success. I was making well over six figures in my corporate job. Was doing really well. Part of my job was to take people out for dinners and drinks, and I was a salesperson, and I thrived in that environment, and thrived in the sense that it led me to success in that sense. But I was also really unhealthy. I was kind of everyone's fun friend, and so that led to me just having just too much excess in my life and not having enough like spiritual structure. And at that time, I started going to church, but I wasn't walking with God. And so I was reading the book, The Artisan Soul by Erwin McManus. And in his book, he just really talks about the importance of crafting your life into a work of art. And we have to be the crafter. We have to actually craft, like we have to be intentional. And I knew at that moment I needed a planner to actually help me execute these strategies that included exiting my distractions. I needed to list out my distractions and exit from them. And I had a lot of them. And so the planner kind of was birthed in that time. And I had to make a plan. And I think, you know, I love making plans. I love strategizing, because once you have a plan and you succeed in it, it's addicting. It's exciting to know, you know what, I can do anything I put my mind to. If I have a plan and I work hard, you can do it. It's exciting. And so I love helping other people in that journey as well.
Mm-hmm. I love how you used a moment that was difficult for you, like for you figuring it out, and now you're giving that to someone else. Like, you're providing that. And I listened to one of your podcasts, actually, your one today, the one that you were saying, like things to help you, kind of like things to take out so that you have kind of like that discipline, that structure. You're talking about social media and like how it like kind of takes a lot of time and you don't really see it. And we live in that day and age. So how can someone be intentional, like how you're saying, like with their time, and maybe that's not a boring gift for them to like have a structure. So how does that first start?
Being more intentional with your time. Man, well, for me, when I want to be more intentional with my time, I first need to look at the question of who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? And there's probably an area of your life where you're feeling discouraged, be it maybe physical, spiritual, in a relationship, business, professional, like maybe it's all of them. Like, but what
Mhm.
areas like they're struggling the most in terms of how can you intentionally invest time in that area to become who you're called to become and to be more encouraged in that area? That's where I
Mhm.
like to send people first so they can really heal in the area that they're probably the most discouraged in. I think that's really critical, um, because whatever area you're the most discouraged in is probably seeping into the other areas.
Mhm.
You know, if you're doing really struggling in your marriage, that's going to seep into how you perform at work. If you're really struggling in your finances, that's going to seep into your marriage. That's going to seep into how creative you are in your professional life because you're struggling with your finances. So, where do you need to invest that time? And once you get that, like, I've got to change, something's got to change. Well, now you're ready to make a plan to have some intentionality. Now you're ready to, like, you know what, like Dave Ramsey, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Yes.
commit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going all
Mhm.
in. I've got to change my life, and I can change my life. I don't have to sit back and say life's happening to me, but I'm going to change my life. Well, you can create a schedule. And the schedule that I like to live by is a 5 block system that I learned from Chelsea Joe from Systemize Your Life. And she teaches it in a workshop inside of the planner, actually. After you decide who you're going to become, you map it out, you get your fundamental needs for the week. There's a workshop built into the planner, there's a little QR code. And she teaches this in depth. But the 5 block system is a morning routine, an AM block, a midday block, which is like your work block when you go to work, a PM block, and then a night routine.
Mhm.
And you have all of your special needs that you need. Like, let's say your finances are the most discouraging part. Where are you baking in time in this 5 block system to focus on your finances? Maybe it's Thursday PM, that's when you're blocking in the time to check your budget, to create your budget, to take Financial
Mhm.
Peace University, whatever it is, you fill in those fundamental needs in your block system. And you have a fundamental need for every area of your life. And what you'll find is there's probably, as you start to map out your schedule, fitting in who you're becoming first, you'll realize all the junk that needs to be removed that
Mhm.
you're wasting your time on. One of the key places, like you just mentioned, is social media. It's a key place that we waste so much time. And guess what? I am just as guilty, if not more, than anybody listening. So please don't take
Mhm.
this as like, man, Polly just does it all right. No, Polly is like totally failing all the time. But I am actually, as of when this podcast comes out, I'm doing every weekend, I'm doing a social media delete challenge. So if you want to delete your social media with me and you want to be an accountability buddy, send me a DM on Instagram, Horatio's Instagram. I already have a list here of people that
Mhm.
have committed that they're doing it with me. So I'll write your name on the list. I'll tag you, and we'll
Mhm.
all delete our Instagram on Friday, and we'll
Oh,
re-upload it
wow.
on Monday. Like, that's where we're starting. It's just for the weekend.
Mhm.
It's amazing how much time we'll get back if we just remove the temptation. And I don't just mean put the timer, because we all
Mhm.
press that button that's like a few more minutes, just a few more minutes, like a heroin
Mhm.
addict. I mean, it's crazy. And
Seriously.
so deleting the app is the only way I've seen actual success. And the first weekend I did it, I actually felt like I was on vacation. If you ever gone on vacation and there's like no service,
Mhm.
you can't even check it if you wanted it. And then
Mhm.
eventually you enjoy the vacation after you get over it.
Yes, you're like,
That's
oh,
It's
I was
like you have to
good.
break
Yeah.
through. It's kind of like summer camp when you go and you first really miss your mom, and then you realize like
Mhm.
this is actually fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
Definitely.
hard at first and then it's amazing. And so I want people to have that same breakthrough, because you need to take your Sabbath. You need to
Mm.
invest in your home and your family and take a break. And it's not just about taking a break from work, but it's a break from everything else, all the noise. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's going to help you heal, and that's going to help you be more intentional and get back time.
Mm-hmm. That's like starting with setting boundaries, but intentional boundaries with your time. I might join that challenge, to be honest, because I definitely feel like on the weekends is a time like people are using it. And I've seen other like people that are content creators, you would say, that are doing like Monday through Friday post. And then they're like, hey, we'll be back Monday. It's like a work schedule now that people are setting because we're more aware of how it takes so much time and it's consuming, and also your energy that you're doing, like how you said, it's kind of like a drug, that it's like you're going. You even mentioned about the lottery, that it's kind of like you pull down and then more, and then so it's like all of that that's happening. And you that also you work in advertising and you've been in the sales, you kind of also know how that works, so like knowing that, but we still fall into it ourselves now with trying to be more intentional with this upcoming year, goals, and 2022 is around the corner, everyone starts planning. How do you balance between you yourself, that you create these tools for someone and you even fall back in those things, like how you said, like how can you be goal oriented and disciplined, but also like kind of take a step back and be like, God, like my life is in your hands at the end of the day. Like how do you balance that?
In terms of balancing those dreams and plans that you might have been thinking about for 2022 and creating the plan, but then also relying on God for the plan, like when do I start dreaming? Is this a God dream? Is it God's will? Is it my will? Is it selfish? I don't know. Like that's such a great question. And this time of year is when we start thinking about resolutions and
Mm-hmm.
dreams, and where as a Christian we can go, am I even allowed to have that dream? Is that like, I don't know,
Yeah.
God, huh? Can I? And so my answer to that specific question is, first and foremost, your best and biggest dream should be becoming who you're called to become, because everything will flow out of that. And it's about cleansing your heart and then living a life of integrity where you are becoming who you're called to become. And your schedule determines who you become, where you
Mm-hmm.
spend your focus, where you spend your time. If you want to become a present, loving mother, well, you need to actually have intentional time where you're having eye contact with your children, where you are deleting your social media or leaving your phone in the other room. But that's really where I sit. I sit with becoming who you're called to become, because the best dreams are going to be birthed out of that place when we're healthy. A healthy heart births a healthy dream. A toxic heart births a toxic dream. A selfish heart has a selfish dream. A scared heart has scared dreams. That's why some people dream really terrible things. Like some people dreamed about running an airplane into a building. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
not a God-centered dream. Like there are bad dreams out there. And so it's about taking care of your heart and making sure that that's coming from a healthy place. And if you ever question a dream, look back at the root of it. Where did this come from? Is it just something that's been on my heart? Did I get it out of coveting what someone else had? Or is this just something that's innate that links back to me and what lights me up? Focusing on your health and your heart is going to be the best way to birth healthy dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's
That's
really kind of
good.
my answer there. And focusing on dreams around becoming more encouraged in the areas that you're struggling in.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your marriage is the area you're struggling in, let that be a big dream. Our
Mm-hmm.
dreams don't all have to look like cars, houses, kids, or whatever it is, that the world says that we need. Not to say paying off your house isn't a bad dream. That's a great dream. Like
Mm-hmm.
pay off your house. That's awesome. But they don't have to look all like Bora Bora vacation. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
what we think of when we think of bucket list dreams. It's about, having a thriving marriage, having a healthy work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
taking a Sabbath. My big dreams are birthed out of who I want to become. And so that's
That's
really
so
where I
true.
like people to focus. And that's what we did at the Dreamer Summit that just happened a few weeks ago. And if you're like, I want to sit down and dream, we
Mm-hmm.
do have the replay access. So if you missed it, you can go back and watch the replay. You can get a replay ticket at HoracioPrinting.com. So FYI, you can go do that because that is really fun. And you have to sit and think about it. Like you're not just going to have all these dreams pop up in your head when
Mm-hmm.
you're distracted on social media. Like you need time to sit with God and
Mhm.
pray and be intentional in that time.
Yeah, definitely. When I think about when you're saying about that, like sometimes your dream is like by little things, like you figure it out along the way. Like it's not just like, okay, this is where I want to go. It's like this is where I would like to be, but what are the steps also that I have to take for that? I think also like in I would say the Christian culture, sometimes like people like even with goals or like your dream or like what God has called you to be, sometimes people, I remember growing up, it was like, what in the church do you fit in? Like, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
what your ministry is, all these things. And then as I got older, I realized I'm like, okay, like God, like what am I passionate about? Like what have you put in my heart? Like who are the people that you've surrounded me around? Where does like my heart hurt for, to help other people? And that's where even this podcast came to be, like through this is my, I would say my ministry, but it's also something that like, like business wise, all these other things. But that came with time. And like if I see like my journey of where it started through, like I was in journalism and then marketing and advertising and then I see that same with you with what you've shared today during the podcast. It's like figuring that out. And as you said something that it's whatever's hurting at that time, like of what you want to be more intentional about. So has that changed throughout your life over
Oh
figuring
yeah.
that out?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Multiple times.
every season, every 3 months
Mhm.
it's changed. And I always tell people, because when people do the little assessment wheel in the planner, sometimes a lot of the wheel is very messed up. Like it's like, we have like 4 flat tires, 4 nails in our tire, right? It's not just one area. It's like
Mhm.
we're struggling. And I always say, like, even Beyonce has an area that is weak. It is okay. Like the fact that you're taking time to even ask the question and sit with that
Mhm.
question is something to be commended and something to be proud of. And like, I'm proud of you for taking the time to do that, because you can't get where you're going unless you know where you are,
Mhm.
and so like, let's look at where you are, and wherever you are is okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. You're loved. You are seen. God loves you. He knows nothing is hidden
Mhm.
from him. Even the darkest secrets, like nothing is hidden from him. Like, let's just work on healing you, and not become some perfection view of where you have to be before you ever start a dream. Like, it's just
Mhm.
about healing the little pieces and creating and cultivating habits that hopefully turn into real, rooted habits in your life, like reading your Bible and then growing to like have that be a reflex versus the
Mhm.
other reflexes in our life right now that probably aren't serving us. Like for me, for example, for me, one of my reflexes is checking my phone all the time. I
Mhm.
can't turn that reflex off. It's so difficult. It's like, how am I going to turn that off? It's like, okay, well, I have to create a stronger boundary because this reflex is so strong. Like, how can we create healthy reflexes in our life? Like grabbing for our Bible, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And
that's
so,
right. But how do you like this is just an honest question for you. Like how do you create some structure and balance with what you have going on as like you have like the push from your business and then your push from like being a mom and like perfectionism can kind of seep in the way of our everyday life of trying to say it perfect or do it perfect. How have you been able to navigate that?
well, I think with the 5 block system, that's helped me quite a bit. I use my planner and my daily notepad. Like, I know people in the podcast can't see, but I've got my
Mhm.
plan of the day.
Mhm.
And when I'm in my AM block, I'm
Mhm.
with my daughter and I'm present. I'm with her. It is mommy and Jane. And obviously
Mhm.
my husband's around too,
Mhm.
and we're doing the whole get ready for school. And I'm intentional with her and I'm having fun with her and we're snuggling and we're doing hair and like I'm all in. And then when we take her to school, I shift into my work block. And that's where I'm focused on exactly what I have to get done, what I have planned based on the projects that I have. I try to create realistic amounts of work for me to get done in that work block, which
Mhm.
takes time to like, how long did I think this was going to take? Okay, it didn't take that long. It took longer. That happens a
Mhm.
lot. And then when this work block ends, for example, after this podcast recording gets done, I'm going to go into my PM block, which is going to be where I'm in mom mode. I am not worried about being at work. I know I'm called to be a mom, and I'm stepping into that space
Mm.
to fully be with her. I guess you can call it compartmentalizing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But that helps me. I know what block I'm in and what I'm focused on and what I'm pouring into. My PM block is where I'm pouring into my home, my child, cooking dinner, and like, maybe there's some laundry we're going to do or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my child goes down, I'm going to be pouring into my marriage. Maybe it looks like a
Mm-hmm.
documentary or hanging
Mm-hmm.
out. Worst case scenario, we both have to get a little bit of work done because that happens from time to time. Once the baby goes down, once the 2-year-old goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my time to pour into my marriage and to take care of my body. Right. And so the block system kind of helps me focus on where I'm pouring into at that time.
Mm. I like how you share this and what we said in the beginning that you are not naturally like this. And I know there's people listening that are like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work to like sit down, put it, write it all out. But how did it become like a discipline for you? And how did you get to that point where you're like, okay, like, because that seems to how you just said, everybody wants to get to that point where you're like, you don't do it perfect, but you are sharing that you're a mom, you're a business owner with your husband, like things that are important to you. So how did it get to that point where now you're like, it's automatic from 2014 till now? Like how,
Oh
let's
gosh.
just preface.
Oh man. I feel like for a long time it was kind of like dream your dreams, then live your life, and like maybe hopefully they connect. Like that's kind of how it
Yeah.
was for so long. It was like, okay, you write all these dreams down at the beginning of the year, and then it's like, well, back to living life. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what happens often in the planner space, I'm obviously like that's where my brain goes, but when we sit down to write our plan out of our week, we think about what do I got to do to survive? What do I do so
Mm-hmm.
my family survives? And what do I have to do this week to people please so that nobody gets mad at
Mm-hmm.
me? What balls am I not going to drop? Right. And that's where we start. And that's not the best place to start. Obviously, there's always going to be these survival seasons, right? I'm about to
Mm-hmm.
go into one because I'm about to have a baby in a few weeks and I'm going to be in survival mode. And like, that's what it is. And I'm going to give myself grace. And that's going to be, hopefully, God willing, it's going to be fine. But
Yes.
in a normal season of life, we need to start with our fundamental needs of who we're becoming. And those need to live in a space. And I like the 5 block system because it's not like this rigid, like, this is what I'm doing for 30 minutes. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing for 30 minutes. This is what I'm doing for
Mm-hmm.
an hour. It's like, no, it's 5 things. Like from the time my eyes open until Jane wakes up is my morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
From the time Jane wakes up till she goes to school is my AM block. Then it's my work block. Whenever I pick her up, that work block has ended. It's very like simplistic. It's not as difficult. And if, my childcare changes, like it's only a half day, then like, okay, my work block's shortened and that's fine. But you lay it out at the beginning of the week. It's just simple. It's not as complex as you think with like time blocking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I've tried that and it is a lot. Like when it's like every 30 minutes or every
Yeah.
15, I'm like, no,
No,
this is
because you get off
overwhelming.
track, you get
Mhm.
distracted, and then you throw it away and you go, I can't do this because it didn't
Yeah.
work. Whereas, like, if
Yes.
you give yourself grace and you just have these simple blocks, like
Mhm.
basically my next block I'm going into is my PM block, which is from 4:30 until 8. And that's
Mhm.
going to include picking up Jane, enjoying my daughter, cooking dinner. Maybe her dad will take her to the park. And then we'll do bath time and we'll eat dinner, do bath
Mhm.
time, and she goes down. Like that's something that I have intentionally on my schedule
Mhm.
because how often, especially if you're a mom or in general, like
Mhm.
we feel pulled in different directions. Like when I'm with my daughter, I feel like I need to do work. When I'm at work, I feel like I need to be with my daughter. And that feeling, that tension is stealing from you. Whereas it's
Mhm.
like, no, I'm fine. She's fine. She's at daycare. She's loving life. She's playing the floor is lava. Maybe she's watching Coco Melon. She's playing with her friends. Like she's good. I can focus on this. I don't have to feel guilty because I
Mhm.
know I have a time coming up. I'm going to spend time with her and I'm going to be so intentional with her.
Mhm.
And so that it brings so much peace. Yes, it does take a minute to learn the system. Yes, it does take a minute to set it up, but there's so much peace in it once you
Mhm.
set it up and you know what you're doing.
I don't have kids yet. So
Mhm.
I love, like, I'm already like, okay, that is a great system to kind of start thinking about. And I know multiple like moms that listen to this podcast. Can you also talk to maybe people that don't have kids that are maybe college, working, gym, meal, like, they kind of have a different schedule.
Mhm.
How would that work out for them, just so they can kind of understand this for themselves? Is it the same kind of structure how you're explaining it, or like is it a little bit different even when maybe you were in that season of your life?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So let's look at 5 blocks for, let's say, a college student or a working professional. Like you have your morning, right? Like your first 15
Mm-hmm.
minutes of your day, that's your morning routine. And the next block would be your AM block, which is any time you have at home before you get to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's your AM. And then you've got your work block, which is the whole time you're at work. And then you've got your PM block, and then you've got your night night
Mm-hmm.
routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you work from 9 to 5, then you might say that your morning is, from 8 to 9, and you wake
Mm-hmm.
up at 7:30. Okay, well, what are all the things you want to be doing with your life,
Mm-hmm.
financially, spiritually, physically, in your relationships, with your investing in your home, cleaning your
Mm-hmm.
house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once you figure out what you need to do in all those areas of your life, they need to go in a block. Typically,
Mm-hmm.
like you could say, okay, on Mondays, I'm doing my Bible study and I'm throwing in a load of laundry. That goes in my AM block.
Mm-hmm.
And in my PM block, that's when I'm working on my big dream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like you
Mm-hmm.
take who you are becoming and the
Mm-hmm.
activities you want to do, and you fit them into your schedule,
Mm-hmm.
typically within your AM and your PM block, because you've got a massive work block in the middle, right? Like when
Yeah.
I was starting Horacio Printing, I had a full-time job, but I wanted to start a business. And I started a
Mm-hmm.
business in 3 months. And it's because I made time after work in the mornings and on the weekends to work on that dream. And I couldn't do that without my intentional schedule and removing things off my schedule that I no longer needed. So by knowing what I'm saying yes to, it's easier for me to say no to the things that aren't serving my dreams and who I'm becoming.
That's
That's the
really
whole
good.
gist of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good. When you were in your 20s, or like in that season of what you were saying, what are things that maybe you see now that you were investing a lot of time in that were not as getting you towards your goal?
Oh,
I
drinking
would
for
say
sure.
drinking,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
going out and
Oh yeah.
spending the
Yeah.
money. It isn't expensive.
It's that, and it wasn't even
Mhm.
expensive for me. I had it all on a company card. I was taking people, it was
Mhm.
part of my job.
Mhm.
So I had a great
Mhm.
excuse,
Yeah.
fantastic excuse to
Mhm.
all that. But my most depleted area of my life was my spiritual life.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it was and my physical life too, let's be real.
Mhm.
And it was extremely hard for me to wake up and have a Bible study. I was going out 3, 4 nights a week, you
Mhm.
know? And that was really where it was like, okay, well, I know I want to start my day with God. I know I want to do first 15, but like I can't muster the energy and I feel like such a fraud,
Mhm.
and that was the big thing I had to cut out at that time.
Mhm.
And just spending so much time with clients where like I said I needed to, but I really didn't.
Mhm.
Like I started taking clients to workout classes with me. Like, let's do Soul Cycle, let's do this
Mhm.
workout. And it was like people loved that. And I could be the healthy sales rep. I didn't have to
Mhm.
be the party sales rep, you know?
Mhm.
It just needed to shift. And I needed to have the willpower and the clarity to like make that shift happen and just own up to the fact that like this isn't healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely relate to that. I think that when I was even like in college age, because I graduated a few years ago, but it was the spending time with friends, but just trying to like be out, it was like a lot of wasted time. When I look back, I'm like, what was I even doing? Like, I needed to be home and sleeping, barely would sleep. So I would be exhausted for the next day. Like, health wise, it was like I always felt super drained, tired, so it's just like when you think back, there are things that you can cut out. And those, like how you're saying, like actually being more intentional with where are you trying to go and where are you trying to be, and that can change. And the importance as you get older and you experience more life, I also feel like that shifts, and then as like a mom that shifts, and as like as it continues to go. So as we're kind of wrapping up this episode, but for 2022, now that you hear a lot of people talk about resolutions, do you believe in them? What are your thoughts on like resolutions versus goals, and that now that we're going to start kind of vision and planning for the next year?
I think if you have a resolution that you want to take, like, go for it. Like, why not? Like, if you have a powerful resolution, like, I'm not going to tell anyone to not do it. I've had resolutions. I've also tried like Lent, like I'm not going to eat cheese. And like the next day I'm eating pizza and I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot, So
we'll start tomorrow.
I think sometimes what we get caught up in is these massive, drastic changes, right? Like I've got to do Whole30 or nothing when it comes to a diet plan or a change in my life. And the truth is, if you want to see long-term substantial growth, you need to probably cut your goal in half. I know it's crazy. I always say dream big, but also cut your goal in half, make it achievable. I love the book Finish by John Acuff, and it's all about how to actually finish your goals. And there's just so many strategies in there because there's so many reasons why we get tripped up at the starting line and then we never finish our dreams and goals. And so it's about saying no to perfectionism, giving yourself grace. Like if you want to cut out sweets or eat healthier or whatever, or maybe you're going to try, not drinking for all of January and you mess up on day 3 and you just go, forget it. Having the whole bottle of wine, forget it. Yeah. I'm done. It's over. I'm eating the whole box of Lucky Charms. Not being able to give yourself grace and not being prepared for the day after perfect, because we have perfect day, and then we have the day after perfect where we mess up. And instead, I would challenge you to prepare yourself for the day you're going to mess up. And what am I going to do when I mess up? Because I'm going to mess up, and just preparing yourself for that, because we're humans and we're going to do that. The day after perfect, I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to dust myself off, and I'm going to keep going because I know this matters. I'm still connected to my why. So I'm fine with either goals or resolutions, but like I said before, I'm really a big fan of who do you want to become and what are the habits I'm actually adding into my schedule that will get me there. That's the big stuff. And then whatever big dreams you have, pray over them, surrender them to the will of God. Surrender them to the will of God, release it fully to him and to his perfect will, so that you can actually have that dream and the dream won't become an idol. It needs to be in the right priority. And so that's my advice there. But really creating the habits and putting them in your schedule is important, and not making it too giant. Like my marriage is failing. Okay, we've got to do this journal, this Bible study, date night every week, blah, 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 blah. It's like, whew, that's a lot. Like let's start with one. You need one thing in your week. What's the one thing y'all are going to do? And make that go for a while, and then habit stack. Try another one.
Yeah, I love how you say habits, because Dr. Caroline Leaf, I don't know if you follow her.
I love her.
I love her podcast, love her stuff, but she talks about that actually habits are informed in 21 days. Like people assume it's like 62. Don't quote me that, but I think it's like 62 or 63. And it's like over time, because it's also the way that we think. So it's like rewiring the way that we think, learning new ways, and then having new habits. It's like a whole different segue or a different structure than what we think. It's like a map. And she explains it so well. But I love how you say that, because it is in the everyday things that we do and the little steps that we make differently. I know when the diet, that's a big thing, especially January, the gyms and everything. I actually told myself, I actually started like a new health kick in August. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to wait until January, because that's like what I always do every year. I'm going to start in August and then structure, like build that momentum so that January comes, it's like, it's already part of my lifestyle. And so, I've been going strong on that. And it's just something to, like, those are like little wins. And like how you said, even when you fail or you kind of have a little setback, then you can kind of start again, you know?
Yeah,
And do you believe that if you tell your dream or your goals to other people, that that also kind of gives you more momentum? You know how people say, like, I'm telling this to have accountability. Do you feel like accountability is also an important part of getting there?
I do, as long as it's a safe space. Um, I think there are some people in our lives who will be put off by our dreams,
Mm,
or your dream will disrupt their comfort zone, depending on the
mm,
dream. And so it's important to have a safe space to dream. I know when like Sarah Blakely was creating Spanx, she
mhm,
didn't tell her family for like over a year.
mhm,
And I was on purpose, and go her, not everyone's going to be thrilled when you
mhm,
start to pursue your dream, or maybe you get this big revelation from God, I've got to move here and do this. It's like, not everyone's, not everyone got the dream
mhm,
download, you know what I mean? And so I think accountability is important, but who you share it with is critical. And if you're looking for wise counsel for your dream, talk to someone who's done that dream successfully. Because if
mm,
you're getting a bunch of naysayers, but they've never ever attempted that dream,
mhm.
you don't actually have to listen to them. Because I
Yeah,
think with
that's
every
right.
big dream I've ever had, I've had plenty of naysayers, from the summit, from starting a podcast, from a Bible study,
Mm,
from having an event where we let people uh, come to know Christ, like
mhm,
all kinds of things. People have told me you're unqualified, or do people even listen to podcasts? I don't think that's going to work.
mm,
All kinds of stuff. I don't think you should keep going in your business. Like, I've had all kinds of people that love me that have
mhm,
said, I don't think you should do that. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't listen to it. So I'm just saying that because it's something that once you finally get over the internal fear, you're like,
mhm,
woohoo, I'm going to do the thing. Sometimes we get hit with these external voices that really could be shocking or hurt, painful,
mhm.
because it's people typically that we seek validation from. And
Yeah.
so just be wary of who you share your dreams with.
Mm.
It's good to have a safe community of dreamers.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because not all voices are the ones that we need to follow. And also, like how you said, like people, it's usually the people that haven't made it up there that are the ones telling us that. So that's really good advice
Mhm.
to reach out to those people that have already made it for either mentorship or just asking them a few questions. I feel like people are more approachable than we think sometimes. Like they were there one time in their life and they're
Mhm.
willing to talk. And even in women support groups, I know that we have that. So, your last words for what we talked about today about goals, dreams, trying to move forward in this next year, but also in the balance of life. We talked about a lot, but I really enjoy this conversation. I know someone got something out of this. So, what are your last words or encouragement for someone listening?
I would want to tell you that your dreams are more important than you realize. There is so much that you will unlock for other people through your obedience in following your dreams. And there's so much that you will unlock by fully saying yes to becoming the person God's called you to become and setting that example for those around you. So don't delay on that. This is one of the most critical places you can invest. There's nothing selfish about this. This is you
Mm,
focusing on your growth, your personal growth, your schedule, what you're going to start saying no to. We all need more healthy boundaries in order to grow. There's things we have to sever from our vine in
mhm,
order to continue to flourish, or to start flourishing, or to start producing and bearing fruit. And
mm.
so that's really what I would encourage you there is, there's going to be some stuff you need to let go of. But when you start saying yes and taking those steps towards your dream, it's going to be a wild ride. And I'm just
Mm,
encouraging you to say yes to that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Polly. Where can people connect with you and know all about what you're doing at Horatio Printing?
Yeah, so you can go to horacioprinting.com. That's HORACIO printing.com. My academy and all my courses are at thedreamerinYou.com. So you can check out those two websites and also listen to the Dream Planning podcast.
Yes, where she talks about in depth about everything that she just talked about and more. I love how she brings in guests and talks about your own experience. And thank you so much, Polly. All her planners and all of that. I love that. I don't know if you designed fully or it's your whole.
It's not my handwriting.
I was not okay. I was like,
No.
That's so nice.
I have terrible handwriting.
It's beautiful. All her planners and everything to plan for your new year. So thank you again, Polly. I hope you guys were taking notes because there were so many like gems that she said throughout the podcast about, our dreams are really birthed out of who we want to become. And that's like what she kept like hitting on. And as I was hearing, I'm like, that's so true. Like it's who you want to become, like, and everything that you do, all the decisions that you make, all the yeses that you decide to take and make all lead to the bigger purpose. And so I love how she broke it down. And thank you guys again for tuning into this week's episode. I really hope that you were encouraged, inspired, and just helping to start. And this helps you to start thinking about 2022, which I know that some of you guys are still processing 2019 and 2020 and this year itself. But just in the next few weeks, as you might have some time off, family and friends, and you're just thinking about things, make sure to start jotting things down in your notes or in a journal and have that time to really just quiet and just start thinking about who do you want to become. So if you really liked today's episode, make sure to share with a friend on Instagram. Thank you for those that shout out. Elizabeth Sabby, Beauty Marks Podcast. It means so much to me. And if you haven't left a review, it takes 5 seconds to do. On the Apple Podcast Purple app, you go to Beauty Marks Podcast and then all the way down where it says ratings, and you just click a rate 5 stars if you want to give it 5 stars, and then write a short review of letting me know what you love, what you're thinking, what you would love to hear more about. And I really appreciate those. They mean a lot to me. And I know that some of you guys, through my DMs, you guys share your thoughts, and I very much appreciate it. I have my list of next topic suggestions already, so I'm really excited to do that. And I really hope you guys are taking care of yourselves around this time of the year. I know it can be a lot. It can be very draining. The end of the year, the deadlines, the goals, all these things, but just have grace with yourself. Take a deep breath and take it one day at a time. Like how I always say, like there's not a race, and do what you need to do. Like listen to your body if you need to rest, if you need to disconnect. And I hope you most enjoy this time of the year. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you guys next week.